Hi there everyone, today we are going to look at solving equations, specifically two-step equations, and there is another video out there in terms of solving one-step equations, so we're going to focus on two-step equations. The reason we're going to focus on two-step equations is because there are different ways of doing it depending on how your question or your equation is structured, so that's worth kind of covering off. Alright, so to solve an equation, like any other, you need to get the variable, the letter, on its own. Alright, so to do this we need to work backwards using inverses and all those kind of different things, and then considering the idea of what's happening to each part of it as we go. Alright, so we're going backwards. Alright, so we need to inverse the number that is on its own first. Alright, so let's have a look at in terms of what that means first. Alright, so if you've got 3x plus 2 equals 11, well, if you consider what's happened to the x, it's times by 3 and added 2, and it's given me an answer. Alright, so when we're working backwards, you take the last thing that you did first. Alright, so I added 2, so therefore I'm going to take away 2 first and then divide by 3. Alright, so when we're writing that down, we're going to restructure this so that the examiner can see that what we're doing. So we are going to take away 2 from both sides, so that means the plus 2 is going to come across here and become a minus. So that's the inverse operation taking place there. The 2 is on its own, so we inverse the first bit. Alright, so that's why we say inverse number is on its own first, so separate. So take that off, which gives us 3x equals 9, and then we're going to divide by 3 because this is currently times by 3, and that's going to give us x is equal to 3. Alright, so relatively straightforward, and you'll have seen these probably about previously or something very similar to this in other kind of questions. Alright, so x equals 3. Alright, so that's quite straightforward. So I'm going to go through a couple of other ones where you, again, thinking about what's actually happened. So what's on its own, what's not. All right, so when I'm looking at this one here, again, trying to think about what's happened to the x, it's x plus 5 all divided by 2. All right, so if it's all divided by 2, then the first thing I need to do is multiply it by 2 first. That's the inverse bit. So the 2 is on its own, so we inverse this bit. All right, and I'm sure you would argue that the 5 is on its own, but because x plus 5 is all divided by 2, then I have to get rid of that 2 first. All right, so I'm going to times it by 2 first of all. So that's going to give x plus 5 equals 7 times by 2 when I do the inverse, which is going to give me 14. And then from there, a little bit like a one-step equation, we're going to take away 5 from the left-hand side, which is going to give us 9 as an answer. All right, and like I said in other lessons, and there's nothing wrong with doing this, is by all means, if you want to check that that is absolutely right, then by all means substitute this number back into the top. So 9 plus 5 is 14 divided by 2. It's going to give you 7, so you can always check your solution and make sure it works perfectly. Okay, right, let's have a look at the next one, because again, the difference between this one and the last one is just a slight variation in terms of the order you do it in. All right, in the last one we had everything divided by 2, whereas this one it's only the x divided by 4. So the thing that's on its own in this case is the 3. So that's the bit we need to do. So I'll say it like I normally say it. So it's x divided by 4, then add the 3. All right, so that's the thing that came last, isn't it? All right, so we're going to take away the 3 first from the other side. So that's the inverse operation of that one. It becomes over here. Just simplify that. So x over 4 equals 3. Well, this is divide by 4. So the inverse of that is going to be multiplied by 4. So I'm going to times it by 4, and therefore my answer is going to be 12. By all means, let's check it. What's 12 divided by 4? 3. Plus 3 is equal to 6. All right, so just be very, very careful. So two-step equations, all right, not that complicated, but I just want you to think about what's happened to the x and the order that happens, all right, because if you get them the wrong way around, if you don't do it in that particular order, then of course the chances are that you're going to make a mistake in an exam. All right, please practice. Please go to maths-school.co.uk where there's a bunch of quizzes for you to practice on, or alternatively, you can always kind of come with this video at any point in the future. Thanks for listening.